Let's quickly hop on to our next panel discussion of the day. On the topic, FinTech, a bridge to economic inclusion during the pandemic. For which I would like to welcome Asif Ali, Senior Executive Integrated Marketing Group, Elit's Technomedia, Nitin Sharma, Chief Product Officer and Managing Director, SME Business Credible, Vivek Vishwanathan, Chief Technology Officer, Pay Nearby, Sandeep Saran, Head Digital Innovation Initiatives, HDFC Securities, Ashish Ahuja, Chief Operating Officer, Fino Payments Bank, Shrivats Vardarajan, Chief Operating Officer, Spice Money. A very warm welcome to you all. Now, I would like to hand over a session to Asif Ali, Senior Executive, Integrated Marketing Group, Elit's Technomedia, as he will be moderating the session. Over to you.
Thank you, Shivani. Thank you for this warm welcome and in introducing this panel. So basically, today we are here for a panel which is very interesting because as we have seen from past couple of years, we can like you can say we have been forced to like go digitized or go on internet where we like even if we are forced to go on internet and digitization, but we have gotten a lot number of opportunities where this industry, which is known as the fintech industry, which basically goes carry over the financial part of the and implementing into technologies and like giving some more wider respect and opportunities to people uh, to have more easily accessible things, or you can say give them more opportunity to use it on a very uh, good to go on a very handy way. So this panel is basically related to a bridge to economic inclusion during the pandemic. Uh, and we have got very eminent speakers, or you can say a very good, well-known, renowned names from fintech and Nubank industries, such as like Nitin Sharma, Chief Product Officer and Managing Director, SMA Business Credible. We have got Vivek Vishwanathan, Chief Technology Officer from Pay Nearby. We have got Sandeep Saran, Head Digital Innovation Initiatives from HDFC Securities, which again a digital platform for securities. We have got Ashish Ahuja sir, very senior and very known personality on this industry, which is he is the chief operating officer of Fino Payment Bank, and we have got Sivats Vardarajan, chief operating officer from Spice Money. So let's quickly go upon like discussing upon and taking feedbacks, or you can say taking a touch upon uh, what and how this fintech industry is uh, putting or implementing the financial inclusion. So I move ahead with Mr. Ashish Ahuja. Over to you, sir. Please let me know your views and feedback on the same.
So, if you, my sense, you really don't need to define the role of a fintech today with financial inclusion. I think they both become synonymous. Gone are those days. Today, fintechs, in terms of financial inclusion, if I was to start with an example, I would put it very simply that in the pandemic, if you take data of AEPS throughput on offers transactions pre-pandemic and post-pandemic and look at who or which part of the industry has gone and delivered that to this thing, so you would see fintechs at the forefront of it. And in this definition, I would say these are BC companies and they work in collaboration with banks, or I would say like Fino, we consider we're a fintech with a banking license, and they're bridging that gap on the banking side. Today, it is no longer requires a definition. It is the alternate banking channel for people at the grassroots level. Branches, the accessibility to branches, those problems have been overcome by these very companies who are working at the grassroots level in a very, very simple, secure manner and delivering services to this population for really, I would say absolutely doorstep service, near to home, neighborhood, which has really built the trust between the consumer and the merchant partner who's working with that particular fintech. And the rails that have been used are naturally, the settlement through a bank, and NPC has built up some beautiful rails in that respect. So I would say, it really requires no definition today. It has arrived at its rightful place in the financial inclusion space, and all this the industry put together has come up and delivered what it really had to do from a financial inclusion perspective. Back to you, Asif.
Thank you, sir. Very well said. Like financial inclusion, basically fintech is the financial inclusion in the finance industry. So moving upon to Mr. Sandeep sir, I would like to understand from you as like HDFC Security is being a platform where where people are doing like investing into securities and everything. So what are your views like how fintech like financial inclusion has been taken part on your like space?
Okay, I'll first go macro. First, I'd like to say that we know the amount of UPI transactions that have increased and gone up. There has been a support from full-fledged support from government on the back of India. I mean, by way of India stack, the Jandan accounts that have been opened. We started way back. I mean, a couple of years back only. I mean, it was not because of COVID. COVID did give an impetus, but I think it was always happening. Uh, so the macro environment has been absolutely benign. Coming to our own industry, I'd like to give you inputs on our industry. We have grown double during the pandemic, right? The number of demat accounts which have opened have just doubled. The rate of growth has gone 5 times, right? The rate at which the accounts used to open pre-COVID has gone up 5 times. Which means what? Which means that a lot of people are coming into the market and applying. I mean, obviously, taking an exposure in the stock market. It could be it could be for delivery, it could be for FNO or whatever they view they have. So we have seen inclusion. I mean, in the recent past, and I think largely it has come up on the back of the support environment that government has created, coupled with the fact that now we've got cheap data as well as we've got 600 million mobile users who are enabled. So we are going to see more and more inclusion happening over time. Back to you.
Thank you for your views, Mr. Sandeep. Now, I would like to move upon to Mr. Nitin Sharma, Chief Product Officer of Credible, because reason being, Credible is also doing a very fantastic job in the fintech space. So, wanted to understand from your point of view and fintech and its role into financial inclusion from your perspective.
Sure, I think a quick word on what we do at Credible. I think we are a working capital finance platform and we work largely with large enterprises to fund their supply chains. At the same time, we also work directly with SMBs to provide working capital financing to them through several of our products that we have today. And if you see, I think in the whole fintech through our lens, this is how we typically see it. A fintech typically we see categorized into several parts. One, of course, is a credit part, which is very dominant today. Second is into payments. Third, insurance. But the two new facets of fintech that have recently, I think, have been seen prominently into the market is one is, of course, trade, and second is the cash flow management part. And when we deal day in, day out with a lot of small and medium enterprises, we are seeing that credit and trade are the most lucrative, or you say, I think, most options where most of the SMEs today are interested. While they would appreciate a lot on insurance and cash flow management, but if you tell them about how can you do trade or how can you avail easy credit, that's what excites them the most. And this is where I think fintechs have been doing a lot of stuff recently. I won't touch the payments and that particular area because I think the rest of the panelists probably would be able to cover that part, but I'll speak more on the trade and credit part. On the trade part, I again believe I think fintechs have played a very pivotal role. The first being creating newer opportunities for people who are totally new to credit. So far what we have seen is anybody who is totally new to credit, if they are going out to a lender today, it's very difficult for them to get credit. Partly because of the reason lenders don't have any information on them. The information asymmetry is very high. But that's where I think fintechs have contributed a lot in terms of innovating first around the products and taking them to a high scale. So for example, invoice products like financial products like invoice discounting, revenue based financing, purchase order financing, or event based financing were something which were not mainstream before last 3-4 years. And that change and that shift we have actually seen now happening in the fintech because of a lot of fintech contribution that happened. And coupled with the backing from the lenders and distribution power and the scalability that fintechs brought in through their technology, we are now seeing a lot of people who were very new to credit are also getting funded through let's say some kind of a backing from a corporate anchor, some kind of additional data that we can acquire on them. One instance could be, let's say if somebody does not have a good CIBIL score or does not even have a CIBIL score, we can still look at what kind of revenues they are doing with a particular customer basis that we underwrite them. And a lot of work has actually happened in this space. Second, of course, I think Ashish also touched upon this part was the serviceability. Now, through fintech, customer acquisition, underwriting them, doing their KYC, and even collections through e-mandates, etc., this has become very scalable. Imagine the days where I think most of the banks were actually had to worry about all of these aspects, that they would acquire customers offline, they would do manual underwriting. Now, all of this is possible to very large extent. You can do a lot of structures in a straight through manner, and this has actually increased the overall serviceability. So there used to be a time where several NBFCs or banks would say that we don't service certain pin codes. A lot of that has actually reduced now. More and more banks and NBFCs are open to the idea that we can actually collect, since e-mandates are available and we are showing certain track record to them. They have some comfort in terms of collecting also now. Finally, I think fintechs have not only provided technology, apart from that, they have also acted as a risk participant in the overall ecosystem. So anytime you're doing something totally new, that's where fintechs have always been the front runner in terms of being the risk participant, sharing some kind of FLDGs with the banks, giving them comfort, proving a model, and then scaling it with the rest of the banks. So this is what my take is, I think, in terms of what the fintech has been contributing towards the overall inclusion. Back to you, Asif.
Thank you for your views, Mrs. Din. I know now we move upon to Mr. Vivek Viswanathan. A quick, you can say, response or like a quick idea from your point of view regarding this upon this topic, like how fintech are taking role into financial inclusion.
Certainly. Thank you, Asif. So I'd like to start by jogging our memories back to the year 2008, when only 17% there or thereabouts of India was banked. In 2011, the number was around 20%. Right? We are now at above 80%. The BIS actually conducted a study, I think, in the year 2020, and plotted a curve which said that in a normal course, India would have taken 46 years to get there. We did it in 6 years, right? The reason I bring this up is because we have digital infrastructure in this country, an inclusive digital infrastructure in this country by way of the India Stack, an inclusion platform where people have an identity via Aadhaar. It just meant that the fintechs need to take it to all of those identifiable people, and fintechs play a major role in that. India, we all know, runs the largest direct cash transfer system in the world, which has probably seen, exponential growth in volumes during COVID times due to direct benefit transfers, etc., which have all run through these rails, and we would have all gone through situations where we've had server downtime during, or server slowness at the very least during those times. So APS, for example, played a huge part in that during the recent dispersal as well. And it's the fintechs that have taken this to the last mile. What is the role? Fintechs enable banking to reach places where banks can't reach, right? And I believe that there are three key things that fintechs play as a role in terms of financial inclusion. the inclusion bit is taken care of by our government and the Indestack and the great digital infrastructure that our country is building, has built and continues to build. But the three things that I think fintech should focus on and play a major role is in innovation, novel sachet-sized products, products which are not off the shelf but customizable, that are relevant to the people. And when I say people, I'm referring not to India 1, which is people like us, the India 2, and the aspirational India 3 that exists. Second is scale. Anything we do in India is population scale. We've absolutely got to have systems that can scale at population level. That is a non-negotiable. It is a non-starter if that scale isn't there. Third is the problem of distribution, because we are a vast country with touch points spread all across. So these are three key tenets based on which, riding on the foundation, riding on the rails that this country has put together, the government has put together, fintechs, by doing these three things, innovation, scale, and distribution, will have a major role to play as part of financial inclusion. Thank you very much. Back to you, Asif.
Thank you for your views, Mr. Ved. Now I move upon to Mr. Srivatsavarajan to give a quick review on the same, your views on this financial, fintech and its term or role in financial inclusion.
Thank you. Yeah, sure, Asif. Thank you, Asif. As far as the fintechs are concerned, in India, we've got more than 2,100 plus fintechs over a period of last 5 years, and we have raised around about $9.23 billion till now. That itself calls upon the space, the growth in which it's going on. And when it comes for the verticalization of fintech, of course, it cuts across the financial services verticals, which includes your the lending, the insurance, the payment space. It includes your also the investment space, all put together, aggregated. But what is happening right now in fintech is, especially people like us in Spice Money, is we are the largest rural fintech organization. So our focus is extremely on the tier 3 and tier 4 locations, covering almost 95% plus pin codes. The objective is the larger part of the 61% plus population are residing in tier 3 and tier 4. And the moment you talk about financial inclusion, it's not in tier 1 and tier 2, but it's in tier 3 and tier 4, where the consumption-based economy is actually growing multifolds. And that is the area where the growth is required for the GDP of the country to grow as well. And how does this financial inclusion works in this entire value chain is right from the institutions, right from government, statutory body, regulators, and to the banking institution, which plays a very crucial role. The distribution arm is very crucial to reach the tier 3 and tier 4. And that's where the complete fintech chain is getting built up, because the distribution is a challenge for large banks, commercial banks, because of the structural issues. And we play a participative role along with them. We work very closely along with them to reach the tier 3 and tier 4, where the maximum population is there. And of course, it's an assisted journey that has to come, because digitally, India has not become 100% digitally savvy in tier 3 and tier 4. So how do you grow a consumption economy? How do you grow a payments economy? And how do you bring this financial inclusion is what fintech is trying to cover the gap.
Thank you for your views. Now I will quickly jump upon on a topic which is basically we all see nowadays collaborations and all going on, because as we can see some traditional things which are going on, they need to have a digital transformation which cannot be taken or it cannot be done directly, so they go for collaborations and everything. So I will ask this to Mr. Ashish Ahuja, when it comes to collaboration, why are fintechs important in enhancing inclusive consumer banking, they're inclusive in consumer banking? Why and how? If you can just give a view on the same.
My sense, I think each entity in the ecosystem has a particular role to play. Now, as rightfully brought up by some of my co-panelists, the fintechs are resolving a big issue in terms of reach and scalability, right? Now, each fintech, like I would say Nitin's company, Credible, resolves a particular, they work on a certain niche use case, right? So now it is upon a bank to decide whether you want to go and do it all on your own. Today, the bank, Fino Payment Bank, runs close to 5 lakh merchant points on its own and has partners through fintechs who have about 3.5 to 4 lakh merchant points running on the banking as a service platform too, right? So that's where the reach comes in. That either you decide as a philosophy to say, no, I'll fix it all my own and go my own path. But my sense, the better way is to partner with somebody, either with a large distribution setup or that fintech has a niche product which you can take to the market through your own distribution setup. So you get, now these are niche use cases. You try to be a jack of all, you probably won't get there. So it is a good opportunity to partner with a fintech in terms of specific use cases. And you'll find a lot of fintechs targeting only specific use cases. And that's where this partnership becomes very, very, it's a win-win situation for both ends. The other aspect is that, which I would say, as you step up into this partnership, the roles and responsibilities between a bank and the fintech need to be very, very clear from day one. Rather, there be discussions at a later point of time when the partnership starts flowering, and that's when everybody believes that who owns the customer finally, and who will do what with the customer. So these are certain questions, if answered at the earlier stage of the partnership, will always help. And that is why fintechs will provide that agility. The bank will provide the product. So my sense, if I was to put it, हम ही हम हैं तो हम क्या हम हैं, तुम ही तुम हो तो क्या तुम हो. So I think there's enough space for both to combine together, and there are umpteen examples of success today of fintechs collaborating with banks or banks collaborating with fintechs and having an equal partnership in respect of a product and delivery being done. Back to you, Asif.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Very well said. Even I believe in this concept, which is like, we collaborate and we can grow together. I believe that's what the motto should be for everyone. I will quickly again get, you can say, like, I will quickly jump upon to Mr. Vivek Vishwanathan's point of view on the same, because he is also doing a very good into like this fintech space, the Pay Nearby section. So your views on the same, sir?
So thank you, Asif. So again, a little bit of the past, a little bit of the history as an analogy. Western economies created roadways, railroads, and created a network for commerce to grow. Right? That we saw that revolution happen at a period of time. I think we are at that point in our journey as well, specifically India as a country. We have built some within the process of building these rails, except they are in digital form. Again, India Stack and its components, right? We are in a space where we have an API thinking to build our products and services. Like I said before, for population scale, building a solution for population scale and building APIs using which you can build solutions for population scale are two slightly different things, but with varying degrees. We are extremely lucky that we have a very forward-looking set of regulators, starting from RBI to NPCI and everyone else, who are creating interoperable platforms. Again, this opens up opportunities for collaboration, right? And as Ashish rightly said, fintechs collaborating with other fintechs and with the financial institutions will form a very, very crucial partnership that is forged, because if you're doing too many things, you're a mile wide and an inch deep, as a wise man once said. So it is essential for all of us, where the sum of parts takes care of the problems of most of the population. By the way, this does not apply just to fintech, because there is a network. It's like saying the roads are only for cars. The roads are for everyone because the rails exist. It can actually assist and give a boost to non-fintech as well. For example, we at Pay Nearby, we're quickly able to mobilize our retailer network to do vaccine registrations, for example. Again, an example of an API-led platform with with various touch points, and quickly enable people to do vaccine registrations without they themselves because they fall in the assisted category and are unable to do it themselves. So collaboration across the board with forward-thinking regulators, the banks as a foundation, and the fintechs tying all of these together and taking value to the end customer. That, I think, is the way forward for all of us.
Your views. Now, I would like to ask Mrs. Rivets on the same, as we have seen Spice Money basically are uh, as you said, is trying to expand into tier two, tier three cities majorly. So how do you see the collaboration part on the enhancing the inclusion of consumer banking on those sectors?
Thank you, Asif. Collaboration is actually the way to go for any business models. You should not be trying to do everything on your own. You'll be overwhelmed. One. Second thing, we are all into business measurements and unit economics. If I take the top of the unit economics chain, if you look at banks, the fact is it will not be economically viable, and the unit economics for the banks will not work at all if they have to cover the length and breadth of the country. It will not make any economic sense for them. So it's very important to introduce a layer in between a fintech layer and the payment service provider. Now this becomes much more efficient because we are now moving towards more of an API banking systems and API economy. And in an API economy, transfer of data, repository, validations, regulations, audits becomes much more easier compared to what it used to be earlier. So there is no pen and paper that you need to take and audit things, right? Everything is available in the form of logs. You come, you audit, and everything is there in a fraction of seconds. There's nothing to hide. The validation systems has become much more robust, like your NPCI layer coming in, your Aadhaar enabled payment systems coming in, your DPT schemes getting more flexible, audited through your Aadhaar, your inclusivity of Aadhaar and other digital economy systems coming from the government mechanism. When this all things gets triangulated and comes as part of the ecosystem, the life of the transaction for the end consumer becomes much more easier. Then what comes in the collaboration is the efficiency in which you build across this entire payment system value chain. Now, this applies also to other financial services vertical. For example, let me take, for example, securities market. When I used to be in the securities market in Reliance Securities and Kotak Securities earlier, there was a heavy branch model that was there, where people used to talk, dealers used to be there, phone calls being done. So Zerodha has come and just disrupted the entire model. And now the entire securities market is running behind Zerodha and creating another securities API economy to make it much more flexible. The same is happening with insurance. Insurance from a large kind of premium to be paid are coming at a plan where you call as a small mosquito plan in the season of rainy season, where you give a 99 rupees plan just to cover for the fever of, say, dengue or malaria. So every section of fintech and every financial service vertical, right from the manufacturer to the chain going to the end consumer, are becoming quite innovative because of the fast track of digital economy that has grown and the API economy that is going. And the only solution for this is to realize, analyze, and collaborate and go more deeper into what you're good at. Thank you, Asif.
Thank you, Mrs. Stewards, for your views. Now I will quickly get this view from Mrs. Sandeep. If you can give your insight on this topic.
Yeah, so Asif, we have esteemed panelists from fintech space only, and I would not be able to say anything without repeating. They've very ably put across the opinion and covered the topic pretty much. The only thing I would say is that the inclusion for consumer banking is not only a domain of fintechs, but the big daddies, the established players are also not. They're not left behind. We are also doing our bit for the inclusion. For example, if we were to just hypothetically talk about us, say in securities market, we see a lot of consumers or users from tier 3 and 4 cities today, right? And we are making business models which are paperless and which can service the consumers there. So that's what we are doing. We're doing our bit. Second thing I'd like to say that you see the advent of peer-to-peer lending, right, and the partnerships that they are building with the established players. So that's the way to go. I also happened to see one documentary on a Chinese fintech which was able to disburse the money in the account for any consumer who's seeking a loan in about 8 seconds. Now they were studying the voice sentiment, the social presence, the credit score obviously. So it's not just about the CIBIL score which flashes in the top right corner of your screen anymore. It's about the other things which are taken into account by fintech to disburse money. So I'm sure the technology will come into India as well, and we'll go away. Much beyond what we are currently at. So that's my two bit about inclusion in consumer banking.
Good. Thanks a lot, Sandeep sir, for your views. Yes, basically, as we are seeing, like things are changing, and we can see like that shift, or you can say a wave of digital transformation which is taking place right now, and we can also see, a lot of MSME or like SME sector which are coming up. So if you can, like if you can have some views, or you can say your ideas on like the opportunities, or you can say the offerings which can be given to this MSME or SME sector for the same. So it will be like it will be very good touch upon for their point of view or knowledge for the same. So I would quickly jump upon to Mr. Nitin for the same, as you can give your views or ideas for the same, the opportunities, or you can say the options which MSME or SME can get in the future.
Sure. I think generally speaking, I think what we have been seeing in last 1 year or so, overall, we are seeing for specific categories, the demand for the products has increased a lot. So if you talk about, let's say, apparel, electronics specifically, even metals in some of the particular examples, the demand has actually gone up. But at the same time, most of the buyers or most of the people who are procuring are struggling today with the supply. So there might be a case. Let me take again an example of let's say apparel industry. Today we have seen cases where a particular SMB today has the capacity to, let's say, build or make about 1,000 shirts, but is sitting with an order of about 3,000 to 4,000 shirts, and they cannot fulfill that need today because they don't have the required working capital. They may still have, let's say, the required equipment, but they may not have labor. How do they pay their labor? How do they procure the raw material and all? So all of that is currently which we see as a big issue. Now this particular problem has actually increased a lot during the pandemic time also, because what happened, a lot of these supply chains got disrupted. Several supply chains actually got a full restart done, where the operations were shut for some time and then they restarted, because of which a lot of SMBs or a lot of small suppliers actually pivoted their business models as well. I personally know companies who were in the logistics space, especially they were doing employee logistics for all the IT companies and different kind of companies that use these services in India today. They did not have anything to do during the period, right, when the lockdown happened. Even today, that particular demand has not come back to the required levels that they would have expected. They shifted to a goods logistics model in the last couple of years, and they have been doing well there. Now imagine a scenario where the demand comes back for employee logistics, let's say in next 3 to 6 months or so. What would happen? How would you quickly get so many people who can drive cabs, drivers corresponding to that, while a lot of them might have actually sold their cars because of low asset utilization for these particular vehicles and all. So there is a big issue that we have been seeing, especially on the supply side, while the demand has been good now. I think post-pandemic, we have seen good demand. And that's where I think it becomes now critical. While several companies are working on, let's say, term loan kind of structures, or companies who have existing lines, they have several schemes today, right, through which they can actually get additional credit. But what is required today is, I think, how can we have more robust, working capital solutions. And to my previous point as well, I think this is where the SMBs today have fintech startups, even banks, who have now been more open to the idea of doing something like a bill discounting, invoice discounting, or purchase order financing, or contract based financing. So a lot of that is picking up lately. 4 years back when we started our company, that time supply chain financing existed, but typically banks did not have a big mandate that they want to increase their supply chain book. Today the scenario is totally different. You speak to any bank, most of the big banks today have a big mandate to increase their overall supply chain book because it's a much safer product. At the same time, it's from SMB perspective, it's really good. So coming back to your question, I think from an SMB perspective, I think supply chain financing or working capital financing is one space that they should certainly explore if they are struggling with the challenges that I just discussed.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your views. Now I will quickly take this question to Mr. Ashish Ahuja, if you can throw some light on the same.
So I would say, Nitin has
How,
covered most of the perspective, but just to add, in the countries today, World Bank estimates the need at about $380 billion from an MSME perspective, and banks and other institutions are just about covering 10% of that. That's RBI data on the table. Now, if that's the gap that you're talking about, then there is a lot of players that can step into this open space and provide innovative solutions. You have MSMEs right from grocery shop, mom and pop shops who do not have credit history, probably do not have the documentation that straight-jacketed bank solutions may require. Now, if you want to go with straight-jacketed, then that's where the fintech role comes in. Can you use artificial intelligence? Can you use data mining? Can you use certain modeling to come out with models which use which can look at use cases for these specific industries so that they get the credit that they deserve? And this is the largest employer in the country. Let's not forget that the wheels of the economy churn upon the MSME and the SME industry. Now, if that is somebody who you're going to leave out of the economic, out of the credit part of it, as Nitin very rightly brought out, people have orders on the table, but may not have the knowledge, may not have the working capital. And how do you bridge that gap? One side, that's a problem. But the other side, that's an opportunity for all of us to put together innovative solutions. There are enough and more. Look at it. Look at what UPI QR code has done. It has taken away this whole gamut of selling a device to a man for ranging from 5 to 15,000 and saying swipe debit cards and credit cards. Every hawker on the pani puri wala hai, wo bhi QR code laga ke baitha hua hai, right? So that's where we have some fantastic India stack which has been built up by NPCI, thanks to NPCI, and like Vivek said, forward-looking regulators is always. And on the payment side, I think we as a country do not carry a legacy. We are better than anybody in the world when it comes to payment mechanisms. Faster, swifter, reliable. In any aspect, we are unbeatable. So there is no reason that this vibrant fintech environment or ecosystem that has got built up cannot leverage these rails which are there in the country today to come out with more innovative solutions to bridge this gap from an MSME and SME perspective. It is upon the industry now to innovate and provide these solutions. Back to you, Asif.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for your views. But in context to this, I would move this question to Mr. Stewarts. If you can put some light upon the same, as being you being into mostly into those places where, as Mr. Ashish Ahuja said, for the QR code part or that section, I believe in tier 3, tier 2, tier 3 cities, we still have got this problem which needs to be covered up. But what are the opportunities, or you can say the offerings can be bring upon for MSME or SMA sector?
Sure, Asif. Thank you. I'll address on this. So India has got around about 6.3 crores MSME. 66 lakhs of them have plus lakhs of them have got registered with Udyam Aadhaar. You got about 110 million people who are employed in these sectors. You got around about 40 plus sectors which is under MSME. The problem statement which the sector has got right now is in terms of credit. Credit is not available out there. Second is sufficient technology for them to grow. And also there is not enough skilled people available for them. Skill is a problem. Plus, they don't have sufficient advisory services. So what today, if an MSME wants a capital, of course they have their own challenges because they are new to credit and there is no separate MSME exchange in the country. So that is the first initiative that I think the government has to take, or probably any private institution should come and form an MSME exchange, where there is a separate pattern to evaluate them, put them into a structured order, and create the India's largest MSME exchange. You don't have to rely and invest only on stocks which are there in NSE and BSE. That's the first way to solve the capital problem beyond assessment and doing lending, providing invoice financing and others. Second, most important thing is most of this MSME and ancillary industries which are there. Again, if you take upon the mom and pop shops, which Ashish said, and the grocery shops, most of them are already part of our ecosystems as well. So they are an extended arm of the banking ecosystem in the form of BC partners who have become digitally savvy and are doing an assisted journey along with the end consumers. So some section of them have adopted digital technology very effectively. And one of the reasons why UPI has not become very successful in tier 3 and tier 4 is because of the lack of smartphone penetration in those locations. It will take another 3-4 years for us to get a good amount of penetrations of smartphones out there in tier 3 and tier 4, and you will have a good upswing coming into the UPI. So in the nutshell, yes, it is contributing 32% to India's GDP. It is a sector which cannot be ignored even if you want to ignore. And all solutions of technology, process, people aligned towards that will give an opportunity of a lot of fintechs focusing rather than focusing. Right now we are working with banks, identifying the problem statement and trying to push the product to the market. We need to go in the reverse order. We need to identify what is the problem statement in the MSME segment, stitch, innovate, collaborate, and go ahead. That's the only solution for addressing this sector. Thank you, Asif.
Thank you, Mrs. Sivats, for your views. Again, moving ahead with the same topic, because as Ashish just said, like regarding the payment part and everything, like so well initiative has been taken and all. I would like to ask Mr. Vivek Viswanathan to give his point of views, like what are more future opportunities or aspects, or you can say offerings which can be given to MSME and SME sectors.
Yeah. So we at PayNearby, we work with a very large number of small retailers across the length of the country. We know that there is a very well-known statistic that they comprise about 60% of the enterprises in our country. MSME lending, MSME insurance, investments, these are all great features that have fantastic potential for them to be delivered. But as a technology person, I would like to touch upon how we must as fintechs take the best of technologies to the bottom of the pyramid, solve problems for them using technologies, be it through products or technologies. One of the things that we must be looking to do is it's great that people take all these products to the length and breadth of the country, but there are still parts of the country, despite the geo revolution, the internet boom, and the affordable smartphones, a large part of the country is still high RWell, low RQual networks, where it is very difficult to conduct a transaction, be it a very small money movement transaction or a slightly more complicated insurance or a lending product. So we as fintechs have the responsibility, I think the onus is on us, to enable the MSMEs through the power of technology. For example, making products work in a low network areas. This will help MSMEs, not just specifically from our perspective. We don't want our customers, who are the retailers, to be just touch points, but be actual value add points, value add to them and to their customers. Right. So given the vast spread across the length and breadth of our country, it's vital that we as fintechs bridge that gap for the MSME sector, specifically using the might of technology for us to get that. Back to you, Asif.
Thank you, Mr. Vivek, for your views on the same. Now, I would like to quickly move upon to our next question, which is basically, we recently have seen the budget which has been announced on the 1st of Feb. So, would like to touch upon the same. So, on this, I would like to ask Mr. Sandeep, like your views on the same. Like, how would you react to the budget which has been announced recently?
See, government itself is targeting 9.2% growth. Where in the world you got this kind of growth, unless it's absolutely a developing economy. So, government is totally gung ho about the economy. They are spending on infrastructure. The tax regime is untouched, unchanged. They are recognizing the digital currency. They are making their own digital payment system. So I think it's a benign budget. It is not a, it's not, it doesn't favor the middle class. That's what I'm quipped about. It's a good budget, forward-looking budget, and it will promote growth. And the growth might come irrespective of. So there could be change in the sectors producing the growth. It could be led by IT, pharma, and other sectors which were languishing. I mean, 2 years, till about 2 years, but uh, but clearly we look at a very solid growth rate at 9% plus.
Thank you for your views. I would quickly take this question to Mr. Nitin. Your views on the same?
Well, I echo my thoughts with Mr. Sandeep, I think, but generally speaking, I think we were expecting a little more on, I think, how can the budget help in terms of the new micro segment. So anybody who is under, let's say, 5 crores in annual turnover. In fact, I think you consider people who are under 1 crore in annual turnover who just got into the system. Schemes like ECLGS, etc., have not been helpful for them. So how do we actually help them? That was something we were looking forward to. I think not a lot around that. And secondly, I think one initiative that government has really done well is on the trades exchanges, specifically helping SMBs on that. But there again, we have certain kind of shortcomings in terms of how can we give certain kind of assurances to the banks who are as a lender there, what kind of incentives can be given to the corporates who are participating there, and how do we actually fuel more volumes on that particular exchange. I think that was another thing we were expecting, but otherwise the rest of whatever Mr. Sandeep mentioned, I think I concur to that thought.
Thank you for your views. I would even like to move this question again to Mr. Stewart, if you can put some light on the same.
Yeah, it's quite well predicted and anticipated budget that we got from the government. A lot of focus on fintech technologies, technology initiatives, infrastructure, capital expenditure spends. The key focus area was transforming India Post into a pilot banking unit. 75 to 75, 75 districts with 75 digital banks. It's a massive one because they've got great potential, not only in terms of available in the length and breadth of the country. They've got enough feet on street to work on, and it fits on bang right there with technology and distribution model uh, in terms of financial inclusion. Of course, we always expect high, and we will never be satisfied, and we should never be satisfied. There was not much expectation coming out from direct taxation, and it happened same. So we all never benefited from the government for last more than 2 decades. So it's okay. As far as the MSME sector is in focus, employability is there, the GDP growth rate is going, the inflations are under control, and we have a good salary increments. We all are happy, and we as an entrepreneurs we get a good ROI. We all are happy.
Very well said. Again, I will move this question to Mr. Vivek Vishwanathan. If you can just put some light on the same, your views on this.
So I'm not an expert in economics, and there is literally nothing I can say in addition to what I've already heard from my fellow panelists. I will say one thing though, as a techie, I'm very excited to see the rollout of the digital currency, digital rupee, how it will be implemented, and how it is going to be rolled out. So from that perspective, very exciting times ahead.
Thank you. We would like to cover up, like we'll cover on this topic also in future, and mostly we'll dig upon it a bit more. Uh, Apart from that, I would like to take this view from Mr. Ashish Ahuja also, because your experience would like, what about your experience? Like, how would you describe this, role of budget which has announced recently?
So I would put it in a perspective to say that you can see COVID hopefully is ebbing toward the lower side of it. And again, I use the word hopefully because I'm not a medical expert. But coupled with that, when you see the government spending big time on infrastructure products, multimodal transport sections, cargo terminals, rail and road infrastructure, those are huge spends. Anything which is spent on infrastructure churns the wheels of the economy, generates a lot of employment, generates a lot of spending into the economy. That's where people like us come in, where you're helping people either deposit cash, withdraw cash, or the credit cycle begins, right? Secondly, tax ops for startups, tax off for people coming in new into manufacturing, always a good sight, especially when it come through a tough period and these kind of swaps come in. I think it would be good for the industry, right? Second, the focus on infrastructure, which I already spoke of, and the digital focus from a perspective, and the fact that Bharat of India today has an aspiration. And today, let me be very clear about it. It is not people like you and me who are only digitally savvy. I would say, in context of all the merchant partners that we have, I think 100% of them are on some or the other form of social media today, right? So it is upon us how fast can we include them into the digital. The younger generation will traverse it much faster, and that's why the impetus on this industry from a government perspective. So if when I dovetail it and I look at it from a perspective of fintech banks or from a fintech or from a banking perspective, I think net this is speaks well for us. It augurs well. We need to pick up our own pieces and move forward with that.
Thank you for your remark. With this, I would like to, just take a quick remark from each one of you, as we have seen, fintech being a bridge in the economic inclusion during the pandemic, and like what even we have this will continue for post pandemic also. So just a quick, you can say remark on the same from Mr. Nitin. We can start from Mr. Nitin. In just a minute or so, you can give a quick remark on the same, like how like economic inclusion during the pandemic and post-pandemic with this fintech has been taking place.
Yeah, I think so. In terms of the uh, post-pandemic, I think we can start saying, like Mr. Ashish mentioned, that we are hopefully towards the end of the pandemic now. So I think we have seen a period where, from I'm just talking from a macro perspective. I think other aspects I've already covered, but from a macro perspective, we have seen a period where the interest rates were quite low for a significant period of time. But now governments are around the world have been considering that should those be actually increased. So I think that impact we can see in the next 6 months or so. What would that lead to in terms of the overall impact for the SMEs? That would be yet to be seen. But generally speaking, I think, like I mentioned, I think demand is pretty good. Supply is a challenge. We just have to stitch the supply for these people and help SMEs and individuals with their credit needs. That's what I want to add.
Thank you for your views, Mrs. Sandeep. If you can just give a quick remark on the same.
So I think we are going to be in a situation wherein we'll have to live with COVID or any of its variants. It is there for some time to come, I believe so, and we'll have to adopt various means to change the way of our working. It has been tremendous last 2 years for us, because we changed the way of working entirely in our own company. We got into a lot of digital process, and it was basically due to this pandemic that we had to perforce shift onto, because it was a fight for survival for us. So we moved on to absolutely digital, and we are adopting more digitization. So we have improved our budgets and all, and I think we'll have to learn to live with the situation and keep innovating. That's the key going ahead.
Thank you. Mr. Ashish Roja, if you can give a quick remark on the same.
So I'd put it very simply: when COVID came in internally from a business perspective, we said COVID stands for creating opportunities in virus-infected days. And I would say, touchwood, from a banking or a fintech bank perspective, we've grown from strength to strength in this. Transactions, naturally, cash withdrawal transactions or any sort of transaction income has gone up through the roof. We've hit new highs in every product that we've been doing. So with COVID ebbing away, my sense is you're looking at a new normal that will come in. And as Sandeep very rightly put it, people have benefited by working around a particular calamity that has happened. Working from home has become a new normal. I don't see people coming back 100% to office and companies spending 100% on putting up office infrastructure, right? I do not see us having physical relationship with lakhs and lakhs of merchant partners going forward. And like, we've invested big time into our call centers and virtual mechanisms at the back end to reach out to virtual assistants to large number of partners, and it's paying huge amount of dividends to us. So, you got to learn from a calamity and come out much the wiser. As someone put it, I think Churchill had a quote on it, which I forget right now. Never lose a good opportunity and never lose a good calamity to come out much the wiser. And I think everybody in their own way has done that and will continue to do that, from a business standpoint.
Thank you for your views. Mr.
I'm just
Vivek,
wanted to
your
add,
quick remark on the same.
I'll just take a minute.
Yep, Sandeep.
I'm just tempted to add that
Go
we
ahead.
now have a loosely defined work from home policy itself. So we have done our soul searching and thought through what are the people and processes which can be shifted on a work from home basis. So we are kind of adopting that, and we are adopting the new normal now. That's how it is.
Thank you for your views. Mr. Vivek, if you can just touch upon the topic,
Sure.
if you can give your remark on same quickly.
I think, yeah. So I think Ashish summed it up summed it very, very well. I think that is exactly what we are thinking of as well as a company. But in general, not as fintechs, not as people. I think post-COVID will pretty much mean living with COVID. COVID is not going to go away. The pandemic may over, it may become an endemic and then get downgraded and eventually become something that we learn to live with. So I think post-COVID doesn't exist. Learning to live with COVID probably does. I feel that there is I'm sure you would all have noticed massive change in our own behaviors, like work from home, the kind of things that we order, our shopping patterns, everything would have kind of changed. And I think we will continue to have a COVID hangover for some time. Although I think the cities and the villages and rural areas all opening up will probably fuel more economic activity. But post, I think there will still be a hangover for some time to come. Thank you, Asif. Back to you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Thanks to each one of the co-panelists. It was really great conversing with you all. So with this, I would like to conclude this session. Over to you, Shivani.
Thank you so much, speakers, for sharing such great views. Now, as a token of appreciation, I would like to present the appreciation certificates. Thank you, Mr. Nitin Sharma, Chief Product Officer and Managing Director, SME Business Credible. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Mr. Vivek Vishwanathan, Chief Technology Officer, Pay Nearby. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Sandeep Saran, Head Digital Innovation Initiatives, HDFC Securities. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Ashish Ahuja, Chief Operating Officer, Fino Payment Banks. Thank you, sir. Thank you for joining.
Thank you so much for having me on the panel. It was a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Shrivatz Vardharajan, Chief Operating Officer, Spice Money. Thank you, sir, for joining. I would also request you all do visit our web portal bfsi.elitsonline.com, and we also have a premier bi-monthly online magazine on the banking and financial sector where you can read articles on BFSI sector covering all the aspects of the sector. Thank you everyone once again. Thank you for joining us and sharing your valuable views.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, and
Thank you, everyone.